This is North Georgia's News Talk.
WDUN. This is gonna be the best day of my life. It is quite possible that tomorrow at this time, all of us in the area will be celebrating with some special athletes from the area because it is the best day of their lives. And by tomorrow, of course, I mean Thursday. What day is it? Am I on vacation yet? Thursday, the Major League Baseball draft happening, and some local talent more than likely going to hear their names called over the course of the first two rounds. Of course, talking about Michael Chavis, Michael Gettys, Spencer Adams, even Max Pentecost still playing for Kennesaw State, the catcher for the Owls. And, of course, they're playing in super regional action this coming weekend at Louisville. We want to welcome into the show now MLB.com draft expert, prospect expert, Jim Callis. We appreciate you being here with us tonight to talk to some Georgia talent, Jim.
No problem at all. And I did not grow up in Georgia, but I'm a proud University of Georgia alum. And when I think of Gainesville, I think of Chris Carpenter, who was on the baseball team, a first-round pick, and also the punter when I was in school and covering the baseball team for the Red and Black.
Interesting you bring up Chris Carpenter. I had him on my show a couple of weeks ago. Still a wealth of information where pitching and football technicalities are concerned. So much fun to talk to him. And congratulations on being a fellow Georgia dog. Great to hear that.
Yeah, no, I need to get back to Athens. I have not been down there since I was covering Olympic baseball in '96.
Oh, wow.
And took a day off and went over to Athens. I need to get back down there. It's been a while.
Yeah, you do. A couple things have changed. Just a couple, though. Not much. Want to talk about some of the area talent, and we're fortunate enough that the guys we're about to talk about really are in our backyard. I want to start with White County Spencer Adams. Had him on the show yesterday, Jim, and he's excited about what's coming up the next couple of days. 6'5", 180, right-handed pitcher, committed to the University of Georgia. Scout.com had him as the fifth best draft prospect. Baseball America's the number 21 high school player in the country. Where do you have this young man rated? Where do you think he's going to go?
Well, at MLBpipeline.com, we had him as the 27th best player in the draft. Very projectable, athletic, right-hander, good fastball, good slider, nice, long, lean body and loose delivery. I think he's going to go somewhere in the end of the first round, in the bottom third of the first round. The one thing that's always tricky with high school pitchers is teams get a little skittish. Like they like them when they're talking them up, but when it comes time to picking them, because you worry about injuries and how's their stuff going to translate when they start pitching every fifth day. I've always found that the number of teams that get excited about high school pitchers before the draft aren't necessarily quite as excited when it comes time to pick them on draft day. So yeah. I think talent-wise, he fits in the bottom third of the first round somewhere. Maybe he goes in the sandwich round, but he's going to go pretty high. I don't think my Bulldogs are going to keep him for the team next year. Yeah, and speaking of the Bulldogs, there's another prospect, a commit for the Georgia Bulldogs, in Michael Gettys with Gainesville. He's been called a five-tool player. I want two things, because looking at MLB.com, he's not rated in the top 34 picks, but he is on some other sites. So I want your take on this young man, first of all. And second of all, who do you akin him to that's currently in the major leagues? Well, I don't know if it's a big leaguer, but he's kind of like the legitimate successor to we've had an unbelievable run of athletic Georgia outfielders in the last couple of drafts. The most electric players on the high school side have been, Byron Buxton and Clint Frazier and Austin Meadows, and Gettys is electric like that, but I would not call him a four-tool player, because I would not call him a five-tool player. He's got four outstanding tools. He's got power potential. He can really run. He's got a great arm, and he profiles as a very good center fielder. He's got the arm strength to pitch if you want to do that, although he's got a brighter future as a position guy. But he does not have much of a track record of making a lot of hard contact, especially in showcase settings or against good pitchers. They went to the National High School Invitational, and he struggled there again against good competition. And he was a guy. I think we had Gettys, I want to say 10th coming into the season when we started our rankings. And he still could sneak in the first round, but I think he's going to be a sandwich or second-round pick if he's signable there. There's just an awful lot of concern about his bat. The swing's long, and it just doesn't seem like he barrels balls enough. I mean, great athlete. He might be, he's up there with any high school athlete in this draft, but there just are an awful lot of questions about his bat, and they've existed for a while and persisted, and he hasn't done anything to answer those. It's
interesting, sort of, the juxtaposition, between Spencer Adams and Michael Gettys. Adams, you're essentially saying a signer right away. He's going to go high enough to sign and go ahead and go play pro ball. With Gettys, though, he might want to reconsider. Is there a chance he plays in a Georgia uniform next year? What advice would you give him?
I don't think it's impossible, and I don't know what his asking price is. I mean, it could kind of go one of two ways with a guy in Gettys' situation. I mean, on one hand, he might have come into the year, and I'm speculating because I don't know these are true. This is just hypothetical. But he could have come into the year thinking, I'm going to be a top 10 pick, and when he goes on draft day, let's say he goes in the 30s, that's a disappointment. He doesn't want to sign. Or there could be the thinking that, if I want to be a big league player, I need to devote myself to this full time, and I certainly am never going to talk down the University of Georgia, and I think Scott Strickland's going to do a great job with that program. But if you're playing pro ball, you're getting a lot more hands-on instruction. You don't have any limits as to how much the coaches can work with you, and you're a full-time baseball player. So it could be that you're having kind of a slightly disappointing spring might push him to sign more. I mean, what it ultimately comes down to is how much money he's looking to sign for, and if he's looking to sign for the money that you get, down there in the 30s, then I think he'll get drafted there. There's an expression, Katie. It only takes one team. I mean, I can say all this, and this is where we have him ranked, and maybe there's 29 teams that agree with me, but there could be one team that thinks he's the 17th best player in the country and takes him when that pick comes up. But it's my advice to him would be, I think it's all different. I know personally, my kids. I just think the college experience is tough to give up. If it were my son, I would not necessarily want my son growing up riding buses around the minor leagues. I would say go to college because you can, I think if you're going to be a good big leaguer, you can be a good big leaguer whether you sign out of high school or college. But, I think everybody looks at the value of that college education experience differently. And I guess my if I had to distill my advice to Michael Gettys down to one sentence, I would just say do what you think is best for you. Or what your family thinks is best for you. You shouldn't be. Don't feel compelled to do something because this person, that person tells you to do it. You should, if college is important, go to college, and chances of money, you'll still be a high pick in 3 years. I'll put it this way: if he's destined to be a big league player or an all-star or whatever, I don't think that changes if he signs now versus signs 3 years later out of the University of Georgia.
And there are several good examples of that are projected to be high picks in this year's draft, whether you're talking about Aaron Nola from Louisiana State or Max Pentecost from Kennesaw State, Jeff Hoffman from East Carolina. There are guys who have made names for themselves. While they might have been on the radar when they were high school players, have really made names for themselves in the college ranks. One young person in particular I want to talk about from Sprayberry High School, third baseman committed to Clemson, and this is Michael Chavis. Now, Jim, there's some questions about his fielding. There are no questions about his ability to bat. He ended this season with a .580 average. What are your thoughts on this young man?
I like Michael Chavis, and he's interesting. We've got him ranked 21st overall, and he's interesting in that he's some of these guys like a Spencer Adams, for instance. Once you get down into the 20s, I think just about every team is going to be he'll be in the mix until he goes off the board. Well, with Chavis, it's kind of, teams are, there's mixed reviews, and he's going to go good, but he's not a unanimous guy where everybody loves him. Because the teams that like him, you like the bat, you like the power, kind of all the tools are solid all around. I think he's not going to be a shortstop at the next level. The most optimistic projection is he can play second, play third, but then at the same time, I've also talked to teams that think he's an older high school kid who's physically maxed out. He's not projectable. He's not going to get bigger and stronger. He is what he is. They question his ability to stay in the infield. And while they like the power, there's some uppercut to his swing, so people worry about that. So he's one that you could talk to two different scouting directors, and one scouting director might tell you he's the 15th or 20th best player in the country, and I've had people do that. Or you could talk to another scouting director and tell you, I don't think he's a first-round pick, and I've had people do that. So I think he's going to go in the first round because enough teams like him, but he's more volatile. It's one of those where he could go at, and I'm just making these numbers off the top of my head, but he could go 18th or 23rd or 26th, but the teams are picking 19, 20, or 22 might not like him. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. personally, I mean, from what I've seen, and I guess sifting through all these reports I get from people, I like Michael Chavis. I would have no problem taking Michael Chavis in the first round. With him, you're betting on the bat. I'll bet on the bat, and I think there's enough bat that, second base to me, probably stretch, but I think there's enough bat for him to profile third base, and I think he's athletic enough to make it work there. And he might have enough bat even if he moves into the outfield. So I like Michael Chavis. I would be happy to take him.
We're wrapping up our conversation with MLB.com draft and prospect expert Jim Callis, also a University of Georgia graduate. I want to finish out with this. Is there a young man from Georgia, whether it's from the college ranks or the high school ranks, that is going to burst on the scene come Thursday, that you're sort of picking to be a pick, if you will, Thursday or Friday for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on him because I think this guy's going to, could go a lot higher than people expect. But you touched on Max Pentecost, who's already having a good week. I mean, they're on some super regionals, and you mentioned about the college decision. Max was a 7th round pick out of high school, even though a stress fracture in his throwing arm as a senior. And he pretty much got as close to putting his name on the dotted line with the Rangers as you can do without signing. I mean, I thought at one point it was a done deal, and he went to Kennesaw State, which, I mean, your listeners obviously know about Kennesaw State. I don't think they're a national name. It's not a major program, and he's just gotten better each year. He had a great summer in the Cape Cod League last year. And what Max has going for him is he's the best catcher in this draft, the best all-around catcher in this draft. Now, Alex Jackson, there's a high school catcher, Alex Jackson from San Diego, who's probably going to move to the outfield in pro ball, and there's a catcher in Indiana, Kyle Schwarber, who's probably going to have to be a left fielder. But Max is definitely the best catcher in this draft. He's going to stay behind the plate, good bat, very athletic for a catcher. The defense is coming, and we'll see. I mean, there is talk, and I think it's legitimate. The Cubs could take him as high as number 4. Now, if they did that, it would be where you would do kind of a discounted deal with him compared to what the typical number 4 pick would get, which would allow the Cubs to save money there and spend it elsewhere. Your listeners may not know, but if teams get assigned exact amounts that they can spend on the first 10 rounds of the draft, and I think the Cubs like him, and they may go that route depending on who gets to him at 4. And if he doesn't go 4, I think there's a good chance he goes 12 to the Brewers. And if he doesn't get 12 to the Brewers, I think he's pretty much in play for just about every team after that, and until he goes. So he's a guy who your listeners probably know something about. But I don't think nationally, I don't even know that nationally many people knew much about Kennesaw State baseball until they won a regional this week. And I think they're going to know more about the program on Thursday because I think he's going in the upper half of the first round. That's
fantastic. Incredible insight. Jim Callis, MLB.com draft and prospect expert. Go follow him on Twitter. Make sure you keep up with him at MLB.com. Jim, we sure do appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. It's always fun talking about Georgia guys. And, I mean, just so your listeners know, I mean, the big 3 states talent-wise, just because of, the sheer size of them, too, are probably California, Florida, and Texas. But, I mean, Georgia really has become, over the last 10 years or so, probably the number 4 state in the country for producing baseball talent.
And fortunately, our area has seen a good number of those with talent go on to the major leagues and make a name for themselves there. Thanks once again, Jim. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Okay, thanks. You too. Take care.
DraftSite.com has Michael Gettys going 32 to Atlanta. Of course, that will be Atlanta's first pick of the draft. They don't get a first-round pick. They've got him going 32 to Atlanta. They've got Spencer Adams going 22 to the Los Angeles Dodgers. A sort of Clayton Kershaw-ish type talent is what I'm seeing there. They've got Max Pentecost of Kennesaw State going 15th to the Los Angeles Angels. And Michael Chavis of Sprayberry High School going 25th to Oakland. If you look over at the MLBDraft.com mock draft, like I said before, they don't have Michael Gettys in the first 2 rounds. They've got Michael Chavis going 32 as a shortstop to the Braves, with Gettys sort of being an is if needed pick for the Braves. At that, they've got Spencer Adams going 29 to the Reds, and you got to go way up the draft board on MLB.com to find Kennesaw State's Max Pentecost. They've got him going 16 to the Democrats because they're a team, to the Diamondbacks. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with our local talent come Thursday. Also going to be interesting to hear what else is about to be said on Game On. My guess is it's going to go back towards the Trey Matthews Georgia football conversation. We're sitting pretty at 21 minutes after 7 o'clock. We hope you'll come back and join us. This is Game On WDUN.